All right, we're right at about 4:20. I want to get started on time because we only have 40 minutes for the session and so many things to discuss. Welcome to the session, Nonprofit Response to Inflation, part of the Gazette's Iowa Ideas Conference. I'm your moderator, Sara Konrad Baranowski. I'm Deputy Managing Editor at the Gazette. This session is part of the Human and Social Services track for the two-day conference. During our time together today, we'll talk with our panelists and address audience questions. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like to add to the discussion, you can type it into the Q&A box or the chat box, and our tech host, Sam Edsel, will forward it on to me. This is also one of our big ideas sessions. That's what this time period of the day is. There are other sessions, also other big ideas. What that means is we want you, our audience, to engage with us. So use the chat or Q&A box to share your thoughts or experiences beyond just questions. Share whatever you'd like to share. This session is being recorded and closed captioning is available. If you have tech questions during the session, put those in the chat box and Sam will help you out with those. But let's get started. I'm joined today by three panelists. They are Brittany Scanlon, Katherine Harrington, and Joe Quick. I'm going to give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us where they work and explain their connection to nonprofits in Iowa. So let's start with Katherine. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good afternoon. I'm Katherine Harrington. I am with Iowa Community Action Association, which is the association that represents the 16 community action agencies around the state of Iowa. Community action agencies are private nonprofit organizations that serve individuals and families facing economic hardship. And a lot of the programming that we do is grant funded, and it can include anything from food pantry assistance, rental assistance. We also run a lot of Head Start programs at our agencies and do heating assistance and utility assistance for folks experiencing low income.
Okay. Joe, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Quick. I'm the executive director of a faith-based community center in Des Moines, Iowa, called the Friendship Center. We've been around at this location for 20 years, but we started back in 1982. We have programming for the MLK community, for kids programming, teen programming, adult programming, all to try to meet a physical and mental need. Even though we are a religious-based community center, you do not have to practice any of our religious activities to participate in our food pantry, our clothing. We do Christmas adoptions. We've done some summer camps, mental health classes, Financial Peace University, going through that. So been here now for 5 years.
Great. And Brittany.
Hello, I'm Brittany Scanlon. I am the Executive Director of Cedar Valley Habitat for Humanity. I'm located in Cedar Rapids, and we have a service area of Lynn and Benton counties. And Habitat is focused on eliminating substandard housing, and by doing that through construction, advocacy, and education.
Great. All right, so this session is nonprofit response to inflation. So let's just jump into it, and I'll ask all of you to respond. How has inflation impacted internal and external operations within your agency? Have you added or eliminated services? How are you responding to this? Brittany, let's start with you.
Sorry, that's my phone. So
that's okay. You're fine.
So, we definitely have been seeing inflation impacting our construction costs. We typically build about 4 to 6 homes every year, but it's caused us to take a harder look at new construction and take a little bit of a step back. We have had to decrease the number of homes that we are building, but with that, it's also though allowed us to kind of find some areas of capacity. And so then we also have been able to start up some new programs, especially a repair program that still is addressing the need of affordable housing. And so what it's doing, though, is it's just focusing on making repairs to homes to make sure that those homes stay in a good condition and therefore kind of maintain the affordable housing stock.
Great. Katherine?
Yeah, I would say certainly in the areas where our agencies are housing food pantries in their organizations, the purchasing power has certainly been decreased. And so food costs have gone up significantly. which means that they're having to stretch a dollar a lot further than they were able to in the past. Similarly, we run weatherization programs at several of our agencies where we go into homes of individuals facing economic hardship and help them with the energy efficiency of their home. And so similar to Brittany's situation in terms of the supply chain on construction materials and things like that, that has certainly stretched the dollar that we can use in order to help weatherize those homes to make them more energy efficient.
Okay. Joe, how have you seen inflation impact your organization?
Well, prior to inflation and COVID, one of our middle of the road type services we offer would be our food pantry here. But since those two, with COVID and inflation, our numbers have dramatically increased with the participants coming in on a weekly basis seeking food. And that's not the same individuals each week. We've seen a wide variety. We're in Des Moines. We've had people from Oskaloosa and Newton come to our food pantries. Just because we don't require ID, it's my philosophy. If you need food, I don't care where you're coming from, we're going to get it to you. So with inflation, we've seen, like I said, dramatic increase in participation, not only in the MLK neighborhood, but statewide coming to our food pantry on a weekly basis.
Wow. The past few years have been challenging on a number of levels, especially financially, not just for organizations, but individuals too. Has your organization seen a change in donations or volunteerism, people wanting to participate in them? And then what reason do you attribute this to? We'll start with Katherine on this one.
Yeah, I would say community action agencies have been the lucky beneficiaries of a lot of outpouring of support during the pandemic and the other sort of social movements that have been going on for the last 2 years. So we are the lucky administrators of a lot of the COVID relief dollars that are flowing from the federal government. So we've been able to increase the number of people that we've been serving. But with a lot of those things phasing out with the phase out of some of those protections like eviction moratoriums and the increased SNAP benefits, we are unfortunately anticipating a big jump in the number of folks that are going to continue to need assistance. And then with that drop off of those protections, I think we're just going to see a big spike. So we're sort of girding for that eventuality.
Yeah. Brittany, how about you?
So we definitely have also seen an increase in individual donations, but when it comes to corporate, we've actually found that that's decreased a little bit. What we've been hearing from our corporate partners is just that there is so much need in the nonprofit community, so they're just having to spread their dollars wider. From a volunteer perspective, we've actually had an increase in corporate volunteering, and what we've heard there is that because of COVID and a lot of employees working more virtually, they're really looking for a lot more team building activities. So that's really been a great kind of a benefit.
Yeah. And Joe, have you seen changes?
This year with inflation, we've seen a drop. This will be my first year in 5 years that we probably haven't raised our donations every year, but we are still on pace to meet our minimum budget needs. So inflation has kind of hit, our families, or a lot of our donations, probably about 60% of how we are funded comes through individuals and families. Then we have churches, then we have corporate businesses, and ever so often after that. But so that's kind of taken a little hit. But with inflation, we've also seen a rise in volunteering. I think people, especially the last 2 years, they just want to be a part of something special, part of something happy, and they want to give out and just get out of the house, and do stuff. So we've actually seen the numbers rise, which has been a blessing to have more people volunteering.
Just as a follow-up, do you think that'll continue, the increased volunteerism?
I hope so. I know, I know we weren't dealing with inflation, but in 2020 when we had the race, not the race riots, but all that kind of turmoil going up, we had a lot of people coming through the center saying, I'm supposed to hate you, or the media is telling me that I'm supposed to hate you because we're a different color or we're different religions. And it's like, you guys are, a positive light in this community. And I think people are seeing by our actions that, we care about anybody that walks through their door. And I think people just want to be a part of that. And I think word spreading on that, and that people, with all the political climate and everything else going on, people are looking to be normal again, if you want to say it that way. And treat people like we're supposed to be treating people.
Yeah. Brittany, I wondered, you said the same thing, that you've seen more volunteers. Do you think that will continue? Maybe people who didn't volunteer with you before might say, oh, I really enjoyed that experience. I don't know if you're hearing that much from people.
We do, but it's actually interesting too that almost our individual donors have decreased a little bit, and we're kind of wondering if that's just because everybody is so busy now. After the pandemic, people are out there, your calendars are quite packed. So it's really just more of the corporate that we're finding a lot more interest in the volunteer activities. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens long term with that. But then also kind of the offsetting challenge is that, like I said, we're building less. So I almost have not as many volunteer opportunities as I would in a normal year. So that's also kind of a difficult thing to balance right now too.
So how do you respond to that? Do you try to come up with different opportunities for them to volunteer, or are you kind of limited in that?
I mean, we are limited. We're trying to be as creative as possible, and just also kind of saying, well, what about next spring? What about next summer? I maybe don't have anything right this fall, but looking ahead, just to see if they can accommodate something like that.
Yeah. Well, this might lead into the next question. With resources being stretched thin, that can lead to collaborative relationships in lots of different sectors. What's been your experience with partnerships? Has there been a change to be more collaborative or to be a competitor? I don't know if you have too many volunteers, if you ever say, if you check out this organization, they're doing similar work or something. I don't know. Are you finding ways to collaborate and kind of work together among organizations? Sorry, anybody who would want to answer that can go ahead.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I do think it depends on what funding space you're working in. We certainly feel like at the state level, the grants have been a lot more competitive, which can create an interesting dynamic around the state, sometimes with unintended consequences in terms of maybe the historic coverage that isn't able to be done anymore because there aren't folks that want to be participating in that competitive territory. But I will say at the federal level, we just recently entered into a demonstration grant to do a diaper distribution pilot. And so we're working with 3 of our agencies, but we're also partnering with a couple of food banks and also a diaper bank in order to put this into place in 18 counties. And so it's a great example and the way that the grant was structured was that it required collaboration. So I think funders can sort of help incentivize this type of thing by building it into their funding model. And would love to see the private sector taking more of a stance in that arena.
Yeah. Joe, are you working with other organizations, or have you seen opportunities to do that?
Yes, ma'am. Before I started in the nonprofit world, I never knew how competitive it was. So you come into it and you want to stand out to your donors. You want to stand out saying, this is what programs that we do, and try to, get that, keep your money, I guess, and coming in. But with inflation, we have reached out more, especially with organizations within the MLK community to, like I said, collaborate and say, okay, what are you doing to the community so that we're not doing the same thing? For example, we do back to school night where we give out backpacks. Well, check out any Saturday in August and there's somebody doing that in the MLK community. So, rather than giving out backpacks, could we give out school lunch boxes or, something else to kind of go along with that? So we've been partnering a lot with Freedom for Youth. We've reached out with the Evelyn K. Davis Center, Urban Dreams, and Creative Visions as well to see if they'd be more willing to, like I said, work together because we're all working toward the same goal, supporting the people of the MLK community.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brittany?
and I guess I would say us too, this time really did force us to think more collaboratively. And I mentioned earlier, we decided that, okay, let's maybe scale back our new construction initiatives And by not building one house a year, that's a lot of money that we can then maybe funnel to a different initiative. And that's where this kind of repairs program has come from. But with that, we also then engaged a couple other nonprofit organizations in town that also kind of have repair aspects to their organization. And so we're really finding that it's enabling us to kind of stretch our funds further. So some of these other organizations might be able to specifically fund grab bars in people's homes or a ramp. Well, then I don't have to worry about using my funds for that. If they can pay for that, then I can focus on maybe helping them with a new roof or windows or, some other needs that maybe address safety or accessibility. So I think that that's been kind of a really great outcome of the current environment.
Yeah, kind of taking a holistic approach to meeting the community's needs. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. A key piece of inflation has been an impact on housing status for many families. Foreclosures and evictions are growing, and home prices and rental prices have increased significantly. How have your services interacted with the need for additional housing focused on resources, and what challenges do you face in that area? Brittany, you seem like an obvious choice for this one.
That's a hard thing to answer.
Yeah.
Habitat, it's our core mission to increase the number of affordable housing units in the community. Like we've been talking about right now, though, it's just cost is our number one challenge. So again, it's us coming to the acceptance that right now, maybe I cannot build as many homes and address that part of the affordable housing issue. But then thinking, okay, what can we be doing to make an impact? So again, the repairs, just making sure that we're at least saving all the affordable houses that we currently do have on the market. But we've also tried to be a little bit more of a connector too for people in the community. So connecting them to other organizations that can provide services. So maybe it's IFA or Horizons when it comes to if they're facing foreclosure. But then also we are going to, in November, we are putting on with a couple other organizations, a homeowner resource workshop. Again, just to kind of combat what we're seeing, just kind of the education piece and connecting people with resources that might be able to help them when they're in the situations that they're in.
Yeah. Joe, do you have much experience with this issue? Are you seeing people? I mean, I assume you're seeing people who need help with housing.
Yeah, we see people help with the housing. They ask for rent assistance, and we have obviously our neighborhood is quite fluent. So Brittany, I would love to speak with you later because we have people asking us, all the time they need resources of, just with their own homes of, who do I call for a roof? Who do I call that, could fix my plumbing? We had an elderly man that was taking showers through a sink for a year because he didn't have his plumbing done correctly. So having people with our neighborhood that's constantly moving, having the right, resources available to them to call would be helpful. But unfortunately, we're not capable of that right now, but we are, like, when they ask, we try to connect them with people that we've collaborated before with, just so that they can try to fit their needs and go from there. But yeah, unfortunately, man, we can't help out with housing right now.
But I think just as a contact for them, like they're seeing you for whatever need you can address, and then you being able to say, oh, you need help with this, here's this person or this agency or organization that can help you with that. That's probably half the issue, is figuring out who can help.
Yes, ma'am.
Katherine, how about you? Is this something that you encounter?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking 5 to 10 calls a day with individuals who are seeking rent assistance or utility assistance, and from around the state. So it's a very real problem. And unfortunately, some of the support that we were getting during the pandemic is going to be ending soon. And so and with the doubling effect of inflation and the eviction moratorium being over, landlords are really sort of doubling down on trying to ensure that they can recoup their investment, but it's also putting a lot of folks in a place where they can't afford to stay in the housing that they may have been able to during the eviction moratorium. And so we're seeing an increase in evictions and big hikes in rent as well. And so that's really putting folks in a really tight space.
Yeah. With the wage gap, generational wealth gap, and health disparities, we're seeing inflation impact marginalized and minority communities at even higher rates. What creative approaches have you taken to decrease barriers to service for these vulnerable populations? And I think you've shared some of those, being able to direct them to services that are available. And how has the approach been interwoven with your agency's response to inflation? I know that's a big and difficult question, but if you have any thoughts.
I think for us, a lot of our agencies during the pandemic, and I think this is true across the board, really had to pivot to use technology in order to best serve our customers that we can no longer see in person. And so we've really leaned into that technology in order to expand how we are connecting with marginalized folks. And so it has increased our ability and opportunity to be able to serve some folks that may have not had the mobility to get to one of our locations. So that has been, sort of one of those unintended positive consequences of the pandemic, where we really had to lean into technology to better serve our customer base.
Brittany or Joe?
I'd say what we've been doing is just more of a deep dive on our policies and our program criteria and qualifications. So I think our repair program is a really great example. We just rolled that out this summer, but when these applications were coming in, we were really just constantly asking ourselves, maybe what are some of these barriers, just keeping that question top of mind. And because of that, we've started to have some conversations with some of these applicants to say, why didn't you turn in, you requested an application, why have you not actually turned it in? So that we can better identify, what was that barrier? And so we actually have already changed. It's only been a couple months since our program was rolled out, but we've already changed some of the criteria just so that we can meet the needs of more people.
What were some of those barriers? I'm just curious.
Application length, just the documents that we're requesting, some things just as simple as a stamp to return the application. So yeah, kind of a variety of different things.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach to ask that follow-up question. Joe, how about you?
Again, ma'am, that goes more on collaboration with that. So we've been in talks with other organizations within the MLK community, how they are able to provide those services, so then that we can relay to those people that come through our doors. We have, like I said, we have people from all over the world coming in, living in the neighborhood. So it's, like I said, it's ever changing. And so just trying to be the best kind of middleman in that area to direct them to the right person and follow through with that. And make sure that person doesn't feel like they're just getting passed off to another organization. So just kind of keeping that, creating those relationships to begin with, and then kind of following through afterwards to make sure, they got the answers they needed.
Yeah. For people who have just joined us, I know there are people joining throughout the session, but if you have questions or things that you want to add to the conversation, maybe experiences or thoughts that you think would help with the conversation, or that you want to share with a wider audience of people who are interested in, how to tackle these big issues, if you put them in the chat box or the Q&A box, our tech host, Sam Edsel, will then forward them on to me and we can share them with everyone. I wanted to go back to Katherine. You've mentioned it a couple of times about how there's been, an increase in funding that's available because of the pandemic or what's happening now financially. But that money's not going to be there forever, presumably. It'd be great if it was. But so are you starting to plan for what's going to happen kind of on the other side of when this funding is not available, or when these special programs? I mean, I know that's a big thing. Like, what are you doing for the future? How are you going to tackle this major problem? But I wondered if, in not just you, but Joe and Brittany also, are you starting to think about, okay, when we come down off of this post-pandemic, if we're post-pandemic, or whenever we get to that point, how I would assume you'll have to adjust again. Are you starting to think about that?
It's such a good question. I think we are lucky that at the federal level, Congress is thinking a little bit more long-term on some of these things. So they have made some pretty big investments with the infrastructure bill that was passed and the and the Inflation Reduction Act. So we have some money that are coming in over the next 5 years that I think are going to be impactful to some of the folks that we're serving, in particular on the weatherization front. So we've had a big infusion of dollars to help a lot more homes gain that energy efficiency in order to help reduce energy burden in households experiencing low income. So I do think leadership at the state and federal level that can be thinking about long-term investment for families that are marginalized is of benefit to our entire community. So as much as we can encourage our leaders to be thoughtful about long-term solutions, that really helps us when we're the boots on the ground folks, able to think more sustainably in our long-term service delivery models.
Yeah, it must be so difficult to have gone through the pandemic and now through the recession, and to feel like you're constantly adjusting to this new way of living and existing. Brittany, do you have any thoughts on that, about how you will adjust once we change again?
Well, I guess I would say ours is maybe a little bit more cost-based though. So, we're hoping construction prices will come down. Many people think that they will, and they already have, considering where we were maybe even a year ago. So it probably will never quite get back to where things were, but that will just in itself be really huge for us.
Joe, how about you?
Well, man, when I started 5 years ago here, we just became a nonprofit for the first time. Before then, we were fully funded. So the past directors left, and then I basically started a nonprofit from scratch. So I'm in charge of the fundraising, the programming, anytime there's events here, the building operations, all that kind of fun stuff. And it's just been kind of wearing for one person to do all those hats right now. So thankfully, though, through our supporters and everything else, we are about to hire a part-time, I'm calling her the director of research and programming, so she or he, whoever it is, I'm sorry, I didn't know they can ever, look for grants for me, because that's, one of the deals that we need help with, getting those grant writings done, and just kind of planning for their future and seeing what we do and what others in our area do, so that we don't double up on the community, and actually be able to help them more rather than just keeping the cycle of poverty to continue. So I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to have help, and I can't wait to see what this position brings for us.
Yeah, that's a lot of work you've done, it sounds like, and a lot still happening. So are people, I think we touched on this earlier, but I think a couple of you have talked about increases in corporate donations and volunteers. How are individual donations? Is that something that dropped off during the pandemic, or has dropped off recently, that you think is going to rebound? Are people giving at the same level that they were before?
I can say for us, we host in collaboration with the Des Moines Register, we host an annual fundraiser called Embrace Iowa. And so you may have seen some of the stories in the Register. And over the last 2 years, we have broken the record for donations. And so that we are fingers crossed, and sort of outreach to the community that please keep those dollars coming. We certainly need them. It really helps support crisis interventions for family across the state, in things like furnace repair, or buying furniture, or clothing for a new job, or helping with prescription drug costs. Anything along those lines is what these dollars go towards. And so our hope is that that the community continues to see that there is a need that is going on out there, and that even if you decide to call it a post-pandemic world, which I think a lot of us are still experiencing in pandemic world, but that the need is ongoing, and that we're really encouraging people to continue to dig deep. But I think it is going to be harder given all of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing and just the widespread need, as Joe mentioned. There are so many organizations that are competing for similar dollars. And so it makes it hard, I think, for donors to make decisions in terms of where those dollars are going. I will say, and I know this about these three organizations, these nonprofits run lean. There is not a lot of excess in terms of, there are no giant bonuses that are given in nonprofit land to high performance for hitting those targets. We run lean, we keep our expenses really low, and but still trying to maintain some level of competitive wages for our employees and provide environments where, and a lot of times people are burning out. This is hard space to be in, doing direct service with people that are experiencing extreme levels of crisis and poverty. So for those who aren't in that space, we just welcome your ongoing support and just know that it's impactful in how our communities are serving those who are marginalized and suffering a lot.
I would also agree. We have seen fantastic support from individuals over the last couple of years. Even now, we're just kind of into the first of our quarter, and we're above our targets. But just as Katherine said, we're interested to see how that's going to continue on, and if now this kind of inflationary period is going to now impact that kind of going forward.
Mm-hmm. Katherine, you kind of touched on this. We got a question in the chat that you sort of answered, which is great. But the question was, what are you doing to prevent turnover, and how are you providing competitive wages while operating on a slimmer budget? That seems like kind of an impossible equation to make work. Do you have thoughts on that? Any one of you?
Yeah, I mean, it is. We are really stuck between a rock and a hard place, or the Bermuda Triangle of increasing costs, increasing demand for our services, and diminishing revenues. So I think what's really happening, particularly in the community action space, is that we're just having to double down on programs that we know that work. And so that's really in our heating assist, our energy assistance programming, our Head Start programming. We love to get out and collaborate and be creative, but that takes resources, that takes time, that takes energy that we're having to maybe not, pull away from other standalone programs in order to support. So it's really just focusing back on our core programming in order to keep that sustainable for the long term.
Joe, it sounds like you're going to hire someone.
Yeah, I'm hoping we don't slim down because I'm the only one on staff here. So if I lose my job here, that'd be a kind of a bummer for me. But no, we're, like I said, we're trying to be, obviously nobody does a nonprofit for the money. You do it to serve the people. And, when you have a passion and a love for a community, it's easy to come to work every day. And so, I would love to be, selfishly, I would love to be paid what other people say I should be paid, but it's not about the money here. And all these two other ladies here would speak as well. It's a passion for what they're doing for the community and how they're helping somebody and making them feel valued and making them feel appreciated, and just maybe just escape reality for a moment and come to a place where people care about you and treat you like you should be treated. So I'm hoping to add that person just to kind of help alleviate some of the pressure off of me. But I want to do whatever's best here for the MLK community, because it's a community that I've come to love and enjoy being around, and hopefully I can be here for another 15, 20 years. So
Brittany, how about you? How do you approach the employment issue?
Well, for us, the most kind of difficult segment of our business, lots of habitats have a restore where people can donate furniture and building supplies, and then we sell that, and then those revenues are then funneled back into our construction to be able to build more houses. So that's been, staffing has been extremely difficult the last couple of years, and we have had to raise wages quite significantly just to be able to be competitive with other jobs out there. So, in essence, what that has done is it has kind of decreased the amount that the restore can funnel back to to the mission, but at the same time, our people are so important, and without them, we won't have an operating resource. So we also need the staff so that we can make sure that everybody is safe over there. It's worth the investment, but it has kind of impacted, just maybe what we can do on the mission side.
Another question that was submitted, you've all talked about how you help people and how you raise money. I'm guessing a key part of the fundraising is sharing the work that you do with the public and with donors. How do you share that work? What are some of the unique ways that you're sharing the stories of the people that you help? I don't know if you have some examples. Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, we do. Obviously, we do like a monthly newsletter, but rather than just posting pictures and stories of that, I've kind of started doing a little 5-minute YouTube recap each month. And surprisingly, people seem to enjoy that. They click on that. That's good, more traction on it. And it's just me, setting up a phone right in front of my desk and, just trying to be as real as possible about, what happened in the past month. Asking for requests, asking for help with, beds, furniture, whatever the community has that day, and mentioning the upcoming program. So people seem to really enjoy the YouTube clips. I gotta work on how do I start, because sometimes my eyes are closed on the video or I'm looking elsewhere, and I haven't got that starting thing out corrected yet. But that's been helpful for us. So having a monthly newsletter, and we just sent out our end of the year appeals as well, starting to do that. So try to plan for the next 3 months on that.
Brittany or Katherine, do you have, unique ways that you share those stories that you'd want to share?
I would just reiterate, we've got this longstanding partnership with the Des Moines Register that really helps to tell the stories of the families and individuals that we're serving across the state. But I would also bubble up, we do an annual advocacy day at the Iowa State Legislature. And so we have some families and individuals who have been impacted by our programming come and give testimony to those legislators about how some of these state dollars have impacted their lives. And that's a really powerful experience. They have powerful stories and really helps connect the legislative body with the impacts of these investments on real world Iowans.
Brittany?
Yeah, I would almost say mine's a merger of both Katherine and Joe. When we have a family that's closing on their home, we have a little celebration at the house where we kind of pass over the keys, and we call it our home dedication ceremony. And we videotape those, we record them, and we polish them up. And those have been fantastic when we're meeting with donors. But like Joe, we share them with our newsletter, and they're out on our YouTube, and those are, like Katherine said, extremely touching. And so they've been really, really helpful when trying to get across kind of what we do and the impact that we make on families.
Yeah, I think showing the work that you do and how it impacts people is so powerful. We had one final question, and we touched on this a little bit, but how are nonprofits working through 3-year forecasts? Is long-term planning beyond 1 year a thing of the past? Brittany, it looks like you're saying yes.
Yeah, I guess I kind of feel like right now it is hard. I just had a finance committee meeting today, and we just budgeted months ago, and already it's kind of throw that budget out the window. So it is really difficult right now. Personally, I'm not really able to look too far in advance. So I'd love to get back to that, but just, you're right. There's just so many things that are changing in the environment daily, weekly, monthly, that right now it's just a little too hard to forecast too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would echo that too. It's, you sort of take a look at the political, environmental, regulatory landscape. And when things are changing so quickly, to put a dollar amount on what you think you're going to be spending or getting in the next 6 months, let alone the next 3 years, is a really hard target to hit. But one thing that I think that helps in terms of planning are some of these collaborative conversations that we're all engaging in the nonprofit sector, and coalition building, I think, helps give us a a look forward in terms of where we think things are going, and relationships that we might be able to tag into as things change quickly. Those conversations are key, at least for community action agencies, to know that we've got partners in this landscape that we can talk to and partner with to really see how nimble we can be in an ever-changing landscape.
Yeah. Joe, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I'm hoping to have a job in 3 or 4 years from now. So, like I said, we're trying to be more mission focused on, how we serve the community. With an example, we have another organization that's their food pantry is kind of slowly going away while ours is kind of picking up. So we're just kind of we're trying to plan for their future and how we serve people, and and what are we called to do here, at the Friendship Center. But it's ever changing, and so like with the ladies, it's hard to plan, but you have to somehow see what can we do here in the future, do, like I said, fit the needs of the community when it's changing constantly. So we're just going to do the best we can, and if our doors open tomorrow, then we'll serve you however we can.
Well, we are out of time. I want to thank you, Katherine, Joe, and Brittany, for joining us today as panelists. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences and your knowledge with us. It's so valuable. This was the last session of today, but there's more tomorrow. Iowa Ideas will return for a second day of panel discussions on Friday. Things will kick off with a virtual speed networking event at 8:30, and at 9:05 we'll get started with a keynote address by Michelle Shelton. And you can find the full schedule at iowaideas.com. And this video will be posted online next week. So anyone who only caught a part of it, or if they saw it and they want to share it with someone, it will be available on iowaideas.com. And thank you again to the three of you for joining me for the conversation. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sara.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.